Hi, my name's Hervey Gibson, and I'm an economist by trade and by training. And what I do is I measure economies, what they call a social accountant. But don't tell anybody at a party you're an accountant. And I want to explain how I became a friend of Sharpeville. About 5 years ago, I went to visit somebody I used to work with, who at the time was working in Tanzania, but she came from Swaziland, and so we went and we had a great time in Tanzania. And landing as an economist, somebody who measures economies, I looked at the markets, I looked at all the trading that was going on, I looked at the village system that they have and I thought, well, how on earth do you measure all of this? Who's filling in a form round here? How do you get an overall picture? And I believe in the principle that if you don't measure something, you can't manage it. And you ask the school inspector, if you don't measure what the students are doing, how can you improve the way the system works, let alone how the individual students work? So that was my starting point, measuring economies. And we went on, and it was obviously very difficult in Tanzania. And then we went on to Swaziland, to Eswatini. And the thing that hit me between the eyes there was the extent of the HIV/AIDS epidemic and the tremendous impact it had on people and society there. So I went back to Scotland, where I live, way up in the north of Europe. When I came for this trip, I looked out of my window, I saw snow on the mountains. And I said, well, what am I going to do about this? And I hit on two ways that I could contribute. One was looking at Africa as a whole and saying, how do we pool experience? How do we build different ways of adding up the economy across the whole continent? That was one thing. The other was I went away and I looked at all the research. There's masses of research done on HIV/AIDS, of course. Most of it extremely good, very difficult, but focused. People doing research, they want focus, they want focused outcome. And that's great, that's what you need to take a step ahead. But also, you want to try and put the whole thing together. And that's what social accountants do. They try and build a whole picture. So that was my start. And so I was thinking about this, thinking, how do you make a research project out of this? Sitting on a train in Scotland, and there was a very lively, noisy, I would have to say, South African woman sitting just across the train from me. And as we drew towards Scotland, just 10 or 15 minutes from home in Glasgow, she said, can I sit next to you? Can you point things out of the window? So I pointed things out of the window, things that actually looked like the Vaal. We were in Lanarkshire, which is where the steel came from, where the coal came from. And Massey and I talked about what we did. She was going, it turned out, to give a conference, to speak to a conference about HIV and well-being in Glasgow. I explained what I was doing, and we said, well, we're going to move this ahead together. And the critical, I was a researcher, I was thinking about it in research terms, and Massey said, quite rightly, what's the point of research if it doesn't get applied? So we took it ahead and we made a project we called SAFER, Social Accounting Frameworks for Epidemics and Revival. That was our project. A year or so later, we came to South Africa to move it ahead, and I went to see Statistics South Africa. As we walked out of the door, Massey says, we've got a little bit of time in hand, let's go and see my friend Nina. So from Pretoria, we went round just a few kilometers to where Nina was living at the time, and we had a discussion, and I did a bit of background talking, just like I'm doing now to Nina. And Nina said, do you want to come to Sharpeville? I'm going there tomorrow. And well, and my heart leapt, because Sharpeville, I've grown up in the 60s. Sharpeville had been part of my understanding of what it meant to be a citizen of the world, and in the 60s, of course, what citizens of the world could do to each other. So that became really important. So we went to Sharpeville, and I sat down, and Nina was going to a meeting. There was a meeting of lots of people connected with Sharpeville, some of them officials, some from the Hauteng Development Agency, most of them local, and we talked about some of the things that really mattered to the community, and trying to take. And we carried on talking afterwards. I formed a friendship with Nico and Tamer, who some of you will probably know, and we started thinking about taking it forward. Nico came to Scotland a couple of times, and we spoke at conferences together, and we talked about, and I had my own understanding of the journey of Sharpeville from horror towards hope. And I think this is we're going to have another of these videos, but today, or this week, we have been celebrating the hope end of that journey. On the 11th of December, there were actually 4 anniversaries. One was the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights on the 11th of December. The second was the signing of the South African Constitution, Cyril Ramaphosa having chaired the drafting committee, brought it to President Mandela to sign in Sharpeville on the 11th of December. 10th. Do I keep saying the 11th? Should we?
No, it's fine.
Okay. On the 10th of December, and so that was another one for the 10th of December. The third anniversary was that, as I said, I learned this trade at the hands of my boss. It was the day. It's the day that they hand out the Nobel Prizes for economics. So that was the third. And the fourth was that John Lilly Sharp, also from Scotland, and for his time, a humanitarian mayor of Vereniging, helped to establish Sharpeville as a township. For its time, as civilized a place as he could get through the system. So 4 anniversaries, all on the 10th of December. So we had a meeting in the old police station on the 10th of December. This Tuesday just passed, and I'll talk more about that and what's coming out of that next time. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.